Guys, welcome back to another episode of Doggie Stoic. So yesterday, someone posted on their story. This podcast is like a month old, and the benefits, man, I feel them every single day. Having conversations with trainers all over the world. That just 20 years ago, I'd have to pay thousands of dollars, fly across the pond, meet Nicholas face to face. Now we could hop on a virtual call, basically for an hour and a half. Learn about your life, learn about how you got into dog training, learn about your methodology, learn about kind of what makes dog training different in the UK than might be here in America. Learn about your Amazon Prime series. And we record that, we clip that, and then we bring that to thousands of people all around the world. And now using AI, we can do that for, pennies on the dollar. So we really, really, really live in an incredible time. So without further ado, got an awesome guest today. His name is Nick Benger, and I think I said that right. Out of the UK, welcome to the show. There's going to be so many good nuggets here for you guys.
Hey, I appreciate being invited. Thanks so much. And actually, that's exactly the same reason I started podcasting as well, is having access to, all of those big name dog trainers. And I know you're going to go through this as well. It's one of the awesome benefits of podcasting is you just end up with the most ridiculous network.
Can I ask you something that's maybe tangential to dog training just right off the bat?
I have a million questions I want to ask you, but go ahead.
Cool. So there's this thing in dog training, right? Like, okay, you have to be a good dog trainer. You have to make sure that if you take money from your clients, you deliver a good product or service to them, right? Makes sense. So you have to be good at what you do. But I think there's not enough content out there about the dog training business, right? Because no matter how good you are as a dog trainer, you still have to pay the bills, And I've had people on who they now have a facility because their business is going well, and that made their training better. It enhanced their training. I think out of all the people I've met, you run the most seamless business model that I've seen. And it seems from afar, Nick, that you have a really good business mind. And my curiosity is, if you can share, let's say someone's out there, they're struggling, they can't pay their bills, but they're a good trainer. What advice would you have to them from just a purely business perspective? We'll get into the dog training side soon.
Oh man, this is a huge subject in itself. I don't know where to begin. I guess it's absolute most basic. This could be a whole podcast, but it's like one of the biggest. There are a few mistakes that people tend to make, when it comes to business. So one is pricing. A lot of times when people start out, their pricing is such a small amount of money that it's just, they would have to work a ridiculous amount of time in order to pay the bills. So pricing is a big one, and a lot of that comes down to a lack of confidence, to be honest. And so it starts to be kind of tied together in terms of making sure you're actually a good dog trainer, but also being willing to price yourself accordingly so that you can pay your bills. And then probably the other most common issue is just a lack of leads. Like people aren't getting enough leads into the business, and the leads are really where everything happens. Like that's your inquiries. So there are different ways that different dog trainers go about getting leads. Some people are really big on Instagram or social media, and then some people are just really good at networking. Like they have really good network with the local vets, the other dog services. Some people, like a million different ways you can get leads, but you have to be good at least one of them in order to get your business going. When I started dog training, I still kind of am, but like when I started my business, I was probably like 18, 19, and I was super ambitious. Like, I want to be the best dog trainer in the world. I didn't care about anything else. I was just obsessed with learning about dogs. But the problem came, it really struck me one day, particularly because I was driving home from a seminar. I didn't have money for petrol, and I had no petrol in the car. You call it gas, right? We call it petrol. And yeah, so I had to ring my family to send me some money. But it was just one of those moments where it's like, oh man, what am I doing? And then from there, I kind of realized oh, okay, I have to figure out the business side of things as well. And really, you have to respect the fact that you're a business owner too, and you have to put the same grind into that you do in dog training.
Nick, I knew we'd hit it off. It's cool because some of these people you don't even know. you just DM each other on Instagram. You're like, hey, I like kind of your vibe. I think I pick up on your vibe through your Instagram. Would you do the show? So this January, I was already in the business for 2 years. I had a mobile grooming business that I sold. And I had the same thing. I was going to my buddy's baby shower. I'd already trained like 75 dogs. I'd go on Google every so often and be like, wow, all 5-star reviews. I didn't have money for gas. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? Right? Like, is it my habits? Because right, first you look at yourself. You're like, is it my habits? Well, I'm not living like I used to live. I'm living a good life. I'm following up with clients. And it was the first thing you said. It was pricing. It was pricing, not just like price more, but think about reverse engineering what problems are you solving, right? So I always tell my clients, or the young trainers that reach out for help, you think you're training the dog in a board and train, but the people actually have more problems, right? They're going to go away on vacation and they need a place for that dog to stay. Are you adding a service to that? Are you even presenting that service early on to say, what's amazing about my program is not only do we train the dogs up front, once the dog is trained, that dog could stay with me at a discounted rate as what I call a mentor dog, right? So now you have a second recurring stream of income. Are you offering day trains, upkeeping, right? Hey, we're going to London for a day with the family. Can you take my dog? You already trained it. So have a training price, but then have all of these other services that people need anyway to bring their dog to you. And here's the really cool benefit of that. Your lifetime value increases, but at the same time, you do better job for clients because you see that dog more often. And I always say you don't train a dog in 4 weeks because dogs go through these like weird developmental cycles, just like us. So seeing the dog over a bigger duration of time actually adds more value to the clients. And I changed my business model on that same trip. So it's funny, you didn't have money for gas. I didn't either.
Yeah, what you're talking about in business terms, they call that vertical scaling, right? But it's really interesting how and I think it's really incongruent the way most dog training businesses are set up. Like, a lot of people, if you talk to dog trainers, people talk about, hey, dogs are learning for their whole life. Is dog training, it should be a lifestyle, it should just be something that you're doing throughout. And yet every dog trainer seems to set up their business in terms of like one-to-one and puppy classes, right? And like no continuity whatsoever. It's like how you're not encouraging the habits in your clients that you're actually trying to encourage. So it's like your business is not set up in a way which is like congruent with your beliefs, and that actually affects the business as well, because then it's massively affecting the lifetime customer value. I remember when I was starting out, I think this is another thing dog trainers do, is like they book the first one-to-one session and then they're like, I don't know, they almost are so scared of sales or being really salesy that they just kind of don't do anything, or they like hope that the client is going to be the one that's pushing to do more stuff. It's like you need to make an offer. Like you need to like give them the opportunity to both give you more money but continue the training, right? You can't just like leave it all in their hands and then be disappointed when life gets in the way and they don't follow up with you.
And it comes back to, I wrote it down, pricing and confidence almost are like these like interlinked things, because most people aren't like narcissistic crazies. Like they're not going to be like, it's my first dog, I'll charge you a premium. But at the same time, the reverse is true, right? If you have had success as a dog trainer, if you go to your clients and you ask, how is that dog doing? And they're like, you transformed our lives. It needs to come to a point where your worth sort of asks you to charge more, because if you're in a space of peace and calm and your bills are paid, you have to realize you're going to be able to help more people and you're going to be able to do a better job with each client. So the pricing to confidence kind of ratio is really fascinating.
I'm a huge reader. Like I read a lot of books, and I've read a hell of a lot of business books. And to be honest, like my little brother, he's just started out as a personal trainer, and really similar business in terms of like how it works, like similar industry. And my biggest the thing that I think helps me or helps the most, like the one reason, if I had to give someone one resource, would be Alex Hormozy's books. To be honest, I just think they're so geared towards our industry. They were really, he's very big in the fitness world, but there's so many parallels. So all of his books, to be honest, are super helpful. Look, there you go. There's a reason. There's a reason you have those books. For me, those are the books that I think are most practically. If you have to start somewhere, start with those books.
And what we're gonna do for you guys listening is we'll distill some of the knowledge and maybe like contextualize it to dog training for you guys. But you're 100% right. How to get leads, how to prepare an offer that people can't say no to you, and how to get people to keep buying from you. Basically, those are the three concepts, right? Yeah. Nick, how old are you?
I'm 31.
31. You started when you're 18. So you've been doing this for 13 years.
It's tough because it's like, when do you say you started, you know? I started, I guess I kind of started like working with dogs when I was 16 because I got a job at like a dog boarding place. But at the time I was out training my dog all the time, and then people would see me training my dog even when I was a teenager, and then they would ask me like, oh, can you come and help me? So I think I did my first one-to-one session when I was 16, which is crazy. Just because I was in the park training my dog all the time, and people were like, hey, I'm having an issue with my dog, can you help me? And full disclosure, I was terrible. Like it was not good.
Terrible compared to you where you are now, or terrible compared to the everyday owner?
I guess terrible compared to where I am now. I think I just made the mistakes that every newbie does. You know, I didn't really. I trained my dog a lot, but I didn't know a lot about dog training. You know, I just really enjoyed it. I was very passionate. Nowadays, I feel like it's different, right? Like when I was starting out, I feel like it was harder to get information. So I think that really slowed down your progress as a dog trainer. Nowadays, it's much easier. You know, even before AI, when you have all of these YouTube resources, all of these online courses, just so much material. And now AI just even supercharges that. But it's like when I was starting out, it was much. I think it was harder to get as good as fast, right? So sometimes the people that work with us, because we also have a lot of like newbie dog trainers come and work with us and stuff like that, and I just feel like their progress can be much more rapid, right? Because it's just so much easier to get information. Certainly in the theory anyway. The practical side of things still takes time to build up. But
can I push back?
Go ahead.
The UK guys like banter. Dude, UK banter is amazing. Are you from London, UK? Like where?
I'm from Bristol. So southwest, London, southeast.
In 2017, I went to London for I think 2-3 weeks for a wedding. Man, I love that place. They banter on the people that work at the subway are bantering with you. It's amazing, and banter's like just like taking the piss.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think all of the resources online do something to people's brains where they can't learn to think for themselves.
You know, now you saying that does, there is one issue that comes about sometimes with learning online, which is like sometimes my clients get this a lot. They go online and they get really confused because everyone's telling them something different and they don't know who to believe. And also the other issue, there are issues with learning online. Another issue is like, let's say I make a video about anything or literally anything in dog training. I have to make that video to try to apply to as many dogs as possible. But what might be really good advice for one dog might not be good advice for another dog. And that's where working with a dog trainer is really important, because you can actually tailor it to the dog. And online, you just can't do that unless you're doing coaching or something like that. But even then, it's more difficult.
For sure, like the sequencing of things.
Right. Even reactivity, right? Like if even reactivity is like, if you're watching a video on how to solve reactivity, well, it's like, well, we don't, just from that video, it's just going to be broad advice. It can't tell you if your dog is reactive because they're scared, because they're frustrated, because they like conflict. Like it's, it's just going to be broad advice.
What are your thoughts on reactivity? Because basically everyone has reactivity these days.
Yeah, I
I'd say
know,
8 out
it's
of 10
crazy.
dogs have their client comes to you with reactivity. The degrees are probably varying, but like how someone comes to you for reactivity, what starts going through your head? How do you evaluate it, and how do you begin the process of curing it?
I'm a really practical dog trainer. One of the things that bothers me is how many times people come to me and they say they've worked with 2 or 3 trainers before, and I'm like, okay, how many situations have you, like how many times have you actually done practical training with a dog? And so frequently people are telling me they've never done that. And it's like, that just absolutely boggles my mind. Like, what were you doing? So I'm very, very practical. So usually when I meet with someone for a first reactivity session, I prefer to meet somewhere. This is just my own preference. I prefer to meet somewhere quiet because that means I'm not going to have random dogs coming out of bushes. I'll bring I'll bring dogs,
Smart.
and we'll get straight to work. Like we'll see what's going on with the dog's reactivity. Usually, the first thing we do is have them have the dog out, and I'll just bring a dog from a big distance, and I'm just observing what the dog's doing. Sometimes I'll say just give the dog treats, and I don't care. It's not training. It's just I want to see if the dog's even capable of taking food when the dog's out. Um,
Just to
and
get a
yeah,
gauge of the emotional state.
yeah, exactly. And also, it gives me information about, because let's say, because like you said, there's such a big range of reactivity. Sometimes if you have and dog owners don't know because they only have their dog, right? Like for example, I saw a dog like maybe a week ago. It was actually quite funny. It was quite extreme in terms of like this dog had really extreme food motivation. It's very unusual. Um, and the dog was screaming when I got a dog out. But if you give the dog food, it's like the dog suddenly is only interested in the food, not interested in the dog, to such an extreme degree. I brought the dog over and let the dog sniff him, and he was still more interested in eating sausage, which is really unusual, right? But that tells you then it's like, oh, okay, I can use food to train this dog so easily because this dog is just crazy food motivated. Um, on the opposite side of things, you have a dog that's not food motivated, or it's not that they're not food motivated, but because food motivation is something that can be worked on and increased. But in the beginning, if they're not taking food, then that's going to limit that option in the training in the beginning. So there's different ways that you can train reactivity, and there's different approaches that you can take. Some of them require you to use food, some of them don't. Or food's convenient. You can use toys and you can use play, but all of those kind of things that you're going to use to motivate the dog, there is like pre-work really that needs to be done to increase that dog's motivation as much as possible with food or play. And sometimes with food, it's easy. I'll automatically send. This is another dog trainer tip. I have it automated. I used to get so annoyed with having clients come so frequently with the dog just have no food motivation, and just like people have spoiled the dog so much, just doing all of the wrong things to have food motivation with the dog. So now I send them automatically a video about increasing food motivation. It just saves me work, saves us time on the first session. The play stuff is more difficult because it requires a little bit more coaching through, but the food stuff is all stuff that they can just get on with before the session even starts.
Guys, if you're sitting here thinking like, where can you get more information? Where can you watch some of these videos? I think one of the cool things that you did, and we'll get to it in a little bit, but you could plug it now, is Nick has a free school community with all of these videos. It's actually incredible. There's like 600 people in it. There's people are sharing their best wins, their best practices, what's worked for them. What's the name of it? It's SKOOL. School is just like an online platform for learning, completely free. What's the name?
Yeah. The easiest, actually, I was one of the early people on school, so I got the unique URL. So it's actually just school.com/dog training. Should,
Damn.
should should take you there. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Let's go. You had a feeling, you were just like, I'm gonna be early on this. You had a good feeling about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was doing my research like in the business side of things, and I was in a group on school, because school is like a place where lots of people host lots of different groups and stuff like that. It's actually really cool. It's like social media if social media was good.
Yeah.
Like the trouble is, like, you go on Facebook and everyone's just arguing, and school's the complete opposite. It's like everyone's really supportive of each other. It's actually kind of daunting when you first get on there. So it's incredible.
You know
And
why?
and
You
you
know why I think that is? Because there's accountability, right? Because
right.
people are naturally good, but on Facebook, if you're like mean to each other, like Zuckerberg's not going to block you. But
Right.
if you're just like, hey, Bob, you've been kind of a dick to like the last 30 people here. And by the way, your dog's not even trained, Bob. Um,
Yeah.
I'll give you a warning, but like if you keep doing this, you're going to be out of the group. There's that accountability factor, right? Whereas on Facebook, like anybody could just say anything. Oh, you use an e-collar? You're the worst person ever. Oh, you use a
Mm.
harness? You're the worst person ever.
Well, you kind of bring up a good point there. It's like, that's one of the things, when I first started the group and we had a lot of people coming in, and obviously people have different opinions about dog training. And, if you go on Facebook and you bring up tools, like you said, e-collars, prong collars, etc., it's like, all hell breaks loose because people have such different opinions. And when that started happening on the school group, people started bringing up, hey, I'm using e-collar, I'm using a prong collar, or whatever. I was like, instinctively, I was like, oh God, is this going to go a bad way? But it just didn't. It just never was an issue. We have people on there that train purely positively. We have people on there that use tools, and they coexist peacefully. And it's really weird. So
Well, the
it's good
one
though.
baseline dimension needs to be whatever your style is, you better have some proof that your style works.
Right.
And then you should be able to start giving advice and then maybe give critiques.
Hmm.
But like it's all in the reverse. It's like people give critiques, but their dogs are degenerates.
True. And, yeah, that bothers me. I was kind of that guy for a while, to be honest. Like, I went through that phase. I kind of realized at some point, it's like I was doing this is another dog trainer mistake, is like you train dogs all day, and then sometimes you're coming home and you're not training your own dogs, or you start to
Yeah.
lose the passion for it a little bit. And then you kind of feel like you're leading a bit of a secret life. Like, here I am, like, training reactive dogs all day. I come home, my dog's reactive. Like that's like where people end up. And um yeah, so I consciously changed that. Actually, getting into dog sports was like game changer for me, because it completely brought my passion back for dog training. Where I didn't really realize, but I kind of become burnt out, and and
Yep.
and when I started dog sports, it just reignited, like, this is why I love dog training in the first place. And it forced me to train my own dogs daily. I train my dogs almost every single day. And I like training my own dogs. It's going back to kind of who I was when I was a teenager, when I was just training my dogs in the park.
I remember at my beginning of my personal growth journey, those early days, there was a Steve Jobs commencement speech. If you guys have never seen this, I would go and watch it. It's only like 20 minutes. It's Steve Jobs to Stanford. Amazing speech. I mean, it's a legendary speech. And one of the things he says was when he got fired from Apple, he said, like, life hits you in the head with a brick. Just keep going. Then he says, it was actually a blessing. So the heaviness of being an expert was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again. And when I hear people say I got into dog sport, I think the underlying emotion that they're feeling when they say that is I got a chance to be a kid again and learn again and tap into I don't know everything. That's okay. And that's actually super fun. So going back and investing in your education, because I felt like that after I went to a few seminars, right? Because I was feeling burnout. What is burnout, right? But I was feeling burnout. I don't love labels on myself. So like I just did. And then I went to a seminar and I was like, wow, there's so many like-minded people here. And I loved this idea and I could use that idea. And then I went to another seminar and I felt that again. So being able to have an opportunity to invest back into learning is actually the things that solves burnout. Because what happened to me was, yes, I would start training dogs. I wouldn't train my dogs. And then you would start getting, am I as good as I say I am? Maybe I'm not that good of a trainer. I don't always get results. My dogs, you know what I mean? And you start going through that. And you know what it comes back to? The very first thing you said about pricing. Because if you're always caught up in the rat race of just paying your bills, you can never invest back in your education.
That's true as well. Yeah, that is true.
So you have to prioritize that.
Yeah, I mean, it's so important, right? It's really, really important.
Who did you start working with for a dog sport, and what dog sport did you get involved in?
So I train IGP now,
Oh, no.
and
They got rid of
I
your stick.
yeah, they got rid of the stick hits. I trained in a few different places, but I ended up really resonating with a trainer called Alex Lato. I would actually really recommend you talk to him at some point, because he's an interest. He's become like probably my best friend in the dog world. He's Polish. He would absolutely hate me saying that. He's any kind of like anything soppy like that. But he's an incredible dog trainer, like ridiculously good. And the thing is, sometimes this is one thing that bothers me a little bit about our industry is sometimes the people that get the most attention are the people that are really good on social media, etc. And Alex does do some social media, but he's ridiculously good at dog training. Like, yeah, unbelievably good. So he's really accelerated my growth as a dog trainer, just being around him and learning from him. Someone said to me at one point, "Oh, why do you do IGP and not another sport?" And it made me really think about it. And I kind of came to the realization, for me, it's not really about IGP. It's about becoming a better dog trainer. And I just feel like IGP is the best arena for me to do that. It's not like don't get me wrong. I like IGP, but it's not really about the IGP for me. It's just that is a vehicle to become a better dog trainer.
Sure. Like I go and I do boxing. It's not like I'm in love with boxing, but what does boxing teach me about being a better person, about preparing more for life, about showing up when I don't want to, about focusing on the details? Can you give us one or two or three things that Alex or IGP taught you that, before you started, you were struggling with? And sometimes it's these minor tweaks, right? It's not these huge changes in behavior that now you could go back and be like, oh, I see that habit that I had changed.
Oh man, it's hard to pinpoint a few things because honestly, no, it was a huge change for me. I mean, probably the last 2-ish years, I feel like I've learned more than I did in who knows how long before. Like it's massively accelerated my progress as a dog trainer. So it's hard to pinpoint a few things. I think just the absolute basics, like I'm much better at playing with dogs than I was previously, and people really underestimate that. And Alex is the best teacher of playing with dogs I've ever seen. This is going to become like Alex going to start loving this podcast. But he's very, he breaks it down like no one else does. And I've done all of the courses from all of the big names, and he's unbelievable with that.
Is step one to just like engage and play, like really build the play, like stop doing obedience, stop asking stuff from your dog, just build that relationship. I don't want to say relationship, just build that addiction to playing with you. Like make that bond so strong before you start asking for all of this crazy obedience, or even asking for sits. Like some people are playing with their dog and then they randomly start asking their dog for sits. Why do you need to put a sit in right there?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like for the play comes in. The obedience comes in later in the play. It's like you've already established play as a huge reinforcer at that point, and then you start slowly building obedience into the play, and that's a pretty standard thing for people that are training IGP. And then eventually, so let's say you've built the play to be a huge motivator for the dog. Then you introduce, then you like play, tiny bit of obedience, play, and then it just slowly starts to become a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, and then eventually it actually goes all the way to more obedience than play.
Yep.
Right, and that's how you then will, of course, eventually you start building your IGP routine, and the dog has to be able to do a lot to earn, a little, essentially.
But most pet dog trainers, like what I find with obedience is, if you're incorporating obedience into play, the goal of that obedience should be to increase speed. To increase, it should be a little frustrating for the dog that the dog is in obedience. And I don't know if frustrating is the right word. And you could push back and say, Andrew, Alex would put it this way, or I'd put it this way. So in the beginning, most dogs aren't like these, cracked out biting junkies. Most pet dogs, right? It takes a little bit to get them to play with full force, or what the word I would use is like to get into a flow state, right? Where they're just fully focused on the game. That's goal number one, getting that dog into a flow state. And then once that dog is in a flow state, the obedience is sort of like, oh, now go in a down 50 yards away and wait for me to release you, right? And now that dog is like, oh, I can't wait to get him. I can't wait to get him, right? And it increases the speed through, the only word I could think of is a little tiny bit of frustration. Is that also how you think about it?
Yeah, I think frustration is a shame that's become almost a negative word, because actually frustration can be like very enjoyable almost. Like all the best games include an element of frustration. But then the nice thing about IGP is it puts a lot of emphasis on how the dog looks, in terms of like, you want a dog that actually is, looks like they're having a great time. Like, you don't want a dog that is healing but looks like they don't want to be there, right? So it kind of puts the emphasis in the right place. And that's where, like, what you're saying about play can be really helpful, because you can affect the emotion of the dog. Like, for example, here's a mistake I made when I started out, and this is a mistake that's really common. I was teaching heel work, and I was just eager. Like, I was just keen. Like, I want to get the heel work done. So I was just drilling it. And then, after a while of doing that, I just crushed my heel work, right? But to the point where the dog's like, you tell them to heel, and they're like, oh God, this again. Because I wasn't paying attention to the dog's like attitude to the training. And that's where play can be very helpful. It's not just about having the dog do the thing. It's like, well, how do they do the thing? Like, what is their attitude to it? And sometimes in the pet dog world, that's not really thought about very much, because, a lot of people, they don't care as long as the dog is doing the action. But that's a shame. I think that's a difference between a dog just doing it and it being really great. Really great training. You want the dog to look like they, well, not only to look like it, but to genuinely really want to be doing it.
It's a mistake I made as well. And I don't teach heel like to nearly the standard you do, but I would say that if I were to look at the dogs that I would train like in play, they love play. They love going on big walks with us or on bike rides. I think you've seen my Instagram. They love all that. But then the way I trained it, and this is where I think dog sport would help, is like the heel is like a pit stop that takes them away from all the fun, right? And then they're just like eager. They're like, I can't wait to get out of this position. Versus I think what makes really good healing is where the dog genuinely enjoys that position just as much as they enjoy the freedom.
Yeah, it's interesting. You remind me of something. My friend Kat Serafina, she's another great scent work trainer here in the UK.
An amazing name.
I know. She's Polish as well. So I don't know. I seem to always be hanging out with Polish people. But she's another really good dog trainer, of similar vein to Alex. She's also been a guest on my podcast, but she said something to me the other day, because she has a lot of spaniels, because she's doing scent detection stuff. She said a lot of dog trainers make a mistake with spaniels. They try to teach them the lead walking like they teach other dogs lead walking. And I said, like, what do you mean, Kat? Like, what are you getting at? And she was like, with the spaniels, they hate being in, they hate having to be controlled like that. And what you really want to teach them is, if they will give you the lead walking for however long it is, they're gonna get the opportunity to explode into the sprinting around and having all of the activity. So it's kind of like a mindset thing. So you do things like, you ask for 10 steps of lead walking, then you let the dog off lead, you let them run around, right? And the reward is like the movement, the explosion. Whereas if you're training like a regular pet dog, like a lab or something like that, you can just give them you can give them a treat, and then you can just carry on, and you can just get reps like that. But what she's talking about, the spaniel, they want the opportunity to explode. And when you kind of put them in that mindset, it's far more productive. I remember a gun dog trainer saying the same thing to me ages ago about teaching spaniels stays. She's like, if you're teaching a spaniel stay, don't do it like you would do it with a Labrador. Instead, you make the emphasis on the go. So it's like, you have the dog, you have the dogs. It's really hard to explain this. I don't know how you would like theorize this. This is very practical dog training, but it's like, it's like sit, stay, go. It's like the emphasis on like, oh, now you get to explode. It's not like sit, stay, yep, here's a treat. It's like the emphasis is on the like, now you're getting the chance to to run as a result of that little stillness that you gave me.
And if you picture that, like you eventually stretch that between the stay and the go, the duration.
Exactly.
What you're trying to do is mentally bridge that the stay leads to the go. Is really the underlying principle that you're trying to teach the dog. Is the go comes from your ability to stay.
Exactly. But it's like weird because it's like the emphasis. It's really it's hard to put this into words, but like you're trying to get the dog to think about it like the emphasis is on the go, not the stay. You know, and that's kind of hard to like. I haven't found a way of putting that into words, but that's really effective for that kind of dog that struggles to just be still. Whereas a lot of dogs, it's not. That wouldn't be a consideration.
Have you been to the U.S. for any seminars?
I haven't been to the US for seminars, but I spent a lot of time in the US when I was doing the show.
How can you share with people? So you were on Amazon Prime. It was For the Pack. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it was For the Pack. So Amazon Prime, they made this TV show called The Pack, which is kind of like what's that? The name eluding me. There's a very popular The Amazing Race, right? So basically, this is how it spawned about. You know, Amazon said, "Hey, we really like The Amazing Race. What if we did this, but with dogs, right? So people and their dogs, and that was the kind of seed of the show. And then they developed it and they turned it into a real show, and I was involved in that. So initially we trained the dogs in LA, so because as they would go around the world, they would have to do various challenges in order to kind of get clues, and like there was a challenge element to it. So we trained the dogs in LA for about a month, and then we traveled all over the place, to be honest. And the competition began. So
rate the experience 1 to 10.
10, definitely.
10. You do it again.
Oh my god, heartbeat.
What did you learn? Like, I'm sure, were you nervous going in?
I don't know if I was nervous. I was nervous. I guess I was anxious about a few things, but not like hugely. Firstly, when I first started working with them, I was like, "Is this real?" I was like, "Is this just some spam thing?" Like, it took me a while to like actually realize it was a real thing. And then I guess there was a little bit of anxiety of like, "Oh, what are they going to do on the day?" Like, because I'm going to look like a right idiot if we go around the world and none of these dogs are doing anything. But the more we went, the more that was just obvious that was not going to be a problem. There was only one challenge, I would say, that went really wrong with that.
Could you share?
Of course. So the one, and you have to bear in mind, we do a lot of challenges. So it's not like we were doing 5 things. We're doing like unbelievable amount of different things. And the one thing that I would say, one challenge that just didn't work, and this was really, I would blame myself for this, is there was in Italy, they did a scent detection challenge, which was supposed to replicate truffle hunting, but we were kind of cheating it a little bit, and they would hate me saying the word cheating it. They're honest about it. It's not like they're lying, but we taught the dogs on birch oil, because there's lots of scent challenges over the course of the show. So we can't, and we're trying to save time. We're not going to condition the dog to huge amounts of scent. So instead we use birch oil throughout. And on the truffle hunting challenge, the birch oil is buried. So it's a buried hide. And I just don't think we did enough work with buried hides. So the dogs they just really weren't getting it. And that's the one thing that I would say went like, just it wasn't working. But it's okay. It still was entertaining, and they did a hell of a lot of other stuff that went really well. So,
and correct me if I'm wrong. So it's just Amazon Prime. People could still watch this. It's called For the Pack. For the Pack, is that right? Or what?
Just the pack.
The Pack. And you're competing in teams, and you have a series of challenges that you're going through with your dogs, and you're competing for a money prize.
Yeah, I forget how much it was now, but there was a big money prize at the end. The one person that won it, won a lot of money.
So we were watching the season finale of Dancing with the Stars yesterday, and everyone's so nice to each other on TV. Even the judges are like, "That's amazing. That was such a good dance." Because we live in that. Was it friendly competition? Was it banter, or were you sometimes like, "Bro, you're a shit trainer over there. What are you doing?" Or is it healthy respect?
I would say on the whole, people got on very well. I mean, I think whenever you get a group of people, obviously some people don't get on, but nothing serious like that. Some people were harder to work with than others, right? Like because the contestants are more they're even though I guess they are in competition, there was more of like camaraderie between them. Like they're kind of in it together, especially if they're on the same team. Um, whereas sometimes I think it's just a reality show thing. Sometimes it can get into a bit of a mindset of like contestants against like the what would you call it? Like production. I don't know. Like so, there were moments like that which were awkward, but I think that's just a normal thing with reality shows, to be honest, because you people are away from their family for long periods of time. Also, when you film reality shows, they're not allowed to use their phones. They're just stuck in a hotel room all day. People start getting like pissed off, to be honest. And yeah, sometimes that people can start just becoming quite diva-ish.
You know what comes to mind? They start getting reactive. So,
yeah, exactly. That's a good analogy.
It is. And I'll tell you how I'm going to bring this home for you guys. So you remember I talked about the layered stress model. That we're going to bring it home to solve reactivity. Layered stress model goes as this: health, fulfillment, clarity, leash. So when you're away from your home, you're not fulfilled the way you normally are, you start, cutting people off in traffic, giving them the middle finger. And you're like, why am I behaving like that? Right? It's this layered stress model. And that's what causes a lot of dogs issues, is if they live unfulfilled lives, if they're unclear about their roles and responsibilities in the group, and if they're always on a short leash, which causes them frustration. Now you have the outburst, which is reactivity, but all of that stuff bubbling up. And what Nick just said, like we're living away from our families, away from our regular routines, away from the things that fulfill us, whether that's exercise or our loved ones or whatever. We don't have our phones, right? We have no clarity. The situation's chaotic because it's so new. So our brains are like, the layered stress model. So people start getting reactive. Not Nick, because he's a stoic. That's why
we should talk about that too. I want to talk about that as well.
Go ahead. What do you want to ask?
Well, let me give you an example of a time that happened anyway,
Please.
Before we move on. And I'm giving you this example because I love Brian. I use Brian as an example. So Brian was competing with his dog Dixie, and we were over in Austria. And me and Brian actually get on really, really well. But he was, they're racing around Vienna and they're like competing, and obviously they're under a huge amount of stress. And there's breaks in the show. So at times people are going to break for lunch and stuff like that. So you don't necessarily get that when you're watching the TV show. But so we're on a little bit of a break. They're preparing to kind of like get started on the challenge. And Brian was getting really stressed about I think he was just maybe feeling like he was going to go out or something like that. And he had a coonhound called Dixie. And I have a little teddy over there. That's like a replica of her that he sent me. But basically, I was trying to like help him. I was just trying to give him some last minute coaching. Like, hey, Brian, just trying to help him out. And he got really pissed off with me. Like, hey, Nick, it's your fault she's not focusing to me. Blah, 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 blah. I was like, oh, God. Anyway, challenge starts. He goes off and she killed it. She like just did really, really well. And then afterwards he comes to me and he's like, sorry, Nick, I was just caught up in the moment, But it's exactly what you said about reactivity. People are under stress and so
stress and pressure with no outlet to let it go it's like a volcano. I think the layered stress model, it actually is a volcano. It's a volcano. It's going to erupt. It's just bubbling down here, so you can't really see it because it's blocked. And it happens in relationships. It happens with our dogs. It happens in our own lives. And that's why self-awareness is so important, right? It's like what's bubbling beneath the surface. That's what makes, I think, humans so special, is we at least could have the ability of foresight, right? To think, okay, right now it's not erupting, but what are the causes? Brian, maybe let's just go for a run. Right? Like sometimes a run in nature with dogs. My whole program for 2 years was running in nature. And I think it did more for my layered stress model than it even did for theirs. I would put that as a top 5 activity for my own personal well-being, and the dogs love it. So now it's a staple of the program. Morning runs with the dogs are one of my favorite things to do.
Is that like on your board and trains?
Every dog.
Mm-hmm.
Every dog that comes through, I get up earlier and earlier. 6:30, 6 a.m. We go on either a bike ride or a run. We pray. We thank God for all of our blessings. We touch grass. We watch the sunrise. And that's how we start the day. So like a perfect day in happy-go-lucky land is morning exercise, morning nature, then a play session around 10, 11 a.m., then an obedience session around 2 or 3 p.m., and then a fitness session, which is like this little Pilates room I built where we could strengthen their back muscles, make them balance on stuff. It also helps them a lot with focus and concentration.
Yeah, I love that. That's like, yeah, what a life for dogs, huh? When I was over in Europe, 2 of my dogs I got from Germany. I really like the breeder over there. And I'm also really good friends with someone that has a lot of dogs from the same breeder. And one thing both of them do, one of them's in Germany, one of them's in France, is they have the e-bike, and they're both very rural. They just go out on the kind of mountain tracks through the woods and stuff on the e-bike, and it's like the dogs love it.
The bike I have, one of my first mentors, I think of him as the Bob Ross of dog training, is Stoney Dennis.
Right.
And he on his channel one day showed like this TST bike. It was $800. That bike has been the greatest investment I've ever had. It's an amazing e-bike. It goes like 20 miles an hour. The e-bike is so much fun. It's so much fun. And I live right on like a nature path where, we use it all the time.
Yeah, for sure. I would use it every day if I could. I have a bit of a tricky situation because I'm in the city. So in order to get to like a path, I have to really like get the bike in the van, and that's a mission. so I've done a bit of bike joring though as well, which is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
That's where the dogs pull you on the bike.
Exactly. Yeah.
I empathize. Like living in the city with a dog, it's infinitely more challenging. I don't know if trainers will admit that, but I mean, elevators are really difficult, right?
Even just the kind of ask on the dog's obedience, right?
Yep.
Like I've kind of done both. If I train dogs in the country, like in order for them to have a reliable recall, it's like so much easier because like they don't come across very much stuff. Whereas my city clients, the city parks, there's picnics, there's dogs everywhere, there's bikes, there's children running around. It's like the level of obedience that the dog needs is so much higher.
Yeah, the margin for error is super low because like 5 yards away, something else is happening. So, are you an e-collar guy? Like, do you use e-collars with the dogs?
I have been on a little bit of a journey with them, to be honest.
Share with that.
Oh man, like I was, man, it's a kind of a long story. Like I started like learning training in a very positive way. That was kind of where I was. Well, actually, I didn't before then. I was actually, when I first got into dogs, I was a huge Caesar Milan guy, because that was what I was exposed to. I was just really into the dog whisperer. And then I knew I wanted to become a dog trainer. So I went to university, and all of my education for a long time was just from positive trainers. And so, I really, I got a very biased education, and as I've been exposed more to tools through IGP training, I also became like, me and Ivan talk as well, Ivan Balabanov, who's, obviously a massive advocate for e-collars. I've just realized they're just not the devil that, that I was told that they were. So yeah, now I have much more of an open-minded approach when it comes to like tools and training in general. You said earlier you don't like labels. That resonated with me because I hate them too. Like when I was starting out, I was in that positive training camp, and I really felt like over the years, actually what it started as when I was starting and what it became were just two different things. When I was starting out, it was like, it felt more aspirational. Like, oh, this training dog's positively as we can, and also there was like a feeling that that was the best way to train dogs. And then over the years it seemed to become like very tribal, very like everyone else is horrible dog abusers. And also, like, I felt like people were just more like, oh yeah, this might not be the most effective way to train dogs, but it's the kindest. And it's like, well, hang on, like I also was really valuing the effectiveness side of things. So like that's extremely important to me. So yeah, I kind of fell out of love with that, but I also don't, like, for the same reasons I fell out of love with that. Like, I don't want to be cool. I don't call myself a balance trainer, because like that would just be jumping from one label to the next. So I just I feel like the labels aren't very helpful. I think they put people in boxes where it's like, I'm only going to learn from balance trainers, I'm only going to learn from positive trainers. So I just, yeah, I've really now I just do my own thing.
Smart man. I appreciate you sharing that. And in the beginning, remember how I said, like, is more information online? Do you remember, does it take away from us thinking for ourselves? And these tribal groups, both on balance, that I totally agree with that sentiment, and the positive, it confused me a little bit, because if I could be candid, the first thing I did for a year with my dog was just try to teach dogs how to have recall, right? So maybe I'm going to the internet for like specific, I'm dealing with issue X, how do you fix it? But I'm not going, hey, tell me the positive only way to fix recall, or tell me the balance way. I'm just saying, how do you fix recall? Okay, well, I need to show the dog that being off leash comes at a price, and that price is listening, right?
Right.
Okay, well, let's buy a really long leash, right? I used to have short leashes that are like 6 feet, and I'm like, that's not long enough. All right, well, let's go 20, 30 feet. 50 is too long. That I don't want to deal with that. So let's get a 20 to 30 foot leash. Okay. My dog sees a squirrel, runs after the squirrel. I ask it to come to me. It ignores me. Well, I'm just going to use a bit of the leash, right? I'm going to keep the pressure on, kind of like if you're at a red light. I use this metaphor, like people honk at you when it turns green.
Mm-hmm.
No one's giving you a cookie to move. They're just honking. And when does the honking stop? When you start going. Mm-hmm. Okay. Hey, Lucky, come here. Come here. And the honking stops when you come to me. Okay. The dog's fine. Like, you know what I mean?
I don't think the e-collar is what a lot of people think it is, and I include myself in that. When I was starting out training, I was, I was getting a very biased view of things, and I mean, even the first time I remember, I was at someone's training facility, and someone gave me the e-collar and was like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't even like. Oh, just feel it. I don't even know like what we were doing. I can't even remember. But I just remember the first time I felt it on myself, and I was like, like I was like, oh god, and it's like, oh, like this is nothing. Like this is not to say that it is always that. Of course, you have the high levels. It can become very uncomfortable if you want it to be, but I had a way worse imagination of what this was going to be than actually what it is. And obviously, what you just described there with the recall training as well, it's like, I think when you come from the positive training, you're imagining people just like blasting dogs with electricity, and it's really not the case at all. It can be extremely subtle.
Do you know what happens when you blast the dogs with electricity or with static?
Right. Yeah,
if
you're
the
not going
dog
to
doesn't know recall. If the dog doesn't know recall, it's going to run the other direction.
Yeah.
So the actual e-collar won't teach recall.
Yeah.
Because, and you could go on YouTube, you could watch these videos. If your dog doesn't understand what you're asking of it, just lighting it up on the e-collar is going to confuse it. And you're going to have as many dogs on the e-collar running away from you because they don't understand the sensation as coming to you. So the reason I made the comparison of the leash is it's just a leash, man. It's if you can't use a leash, you can't use an e-collar. And what I see with the positive only crowd, because I have a lot here, I'm in Miami, is they don't actually care if they want to get results for clients. What they want to do is shame the human into coming back to the business. And I'm not saying that's everybody.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, when I was when I called myself a positive trainer, I like, I definitely still cared about the results for people.
Of course you did.
But I had just become a little bit maybe a little bit brainwashed into thinking there was only one way of doing things, and so everything else is off the table. It's like, this is what we can do, and if that doesn't get results, we just need to do more of it, or you know or maybe the owner's not doing a very good job of it. But actually, yeah, like obviously there's a lot of options. I mean, and sometimes it goes to even really extreme things, like even just, for example, use if you have a dog that's attention barking, just like barking for attention constantly. I remember when I first, sounds so ridiculous, but first started to incorporate some punishment into my training in terms of the timeout, right? Like if the dog starts barking, I'm going to use a punishment marker and I'm going to do a timeout. And like, if you go on these positive training groups, it's like they will make you feel really bad about that. And it's like there's there is, I don't know if, look, I've been training for a long time. I've never heard of anyone coming up with an effective strategy for attention seeking barking that doesn't incorporate some kind of punishment. How are you going to reinforce a dog out of something where they're desperate for the reinforcement that you're going to provide them with? If it's like you need to have something there. So yeah, even little things like that. And you spoke a little bit about tools. It's strange how like we as a like the positive training community is okay with things like head collars, which is obviously an aversive tool, but really against other tools. So it's become more of a tribalistic thing than, and I'm not really signed up for that. Like I just want to train dogs.
You've left all that in the past.
Sorry?
You've left all of it in the past.
Yeah, I'm done with it. I'm done with that for sure. That's why I didn't want to jump from one tribe to the next either. Also, like sometimes I'm guilty of this because I was closer to that side of things. I get more annoyed about that. But actually, if I go into some of the balance training communities online, it's like I see terrible things there too in some of those groups. So it's not like one side is great and one side is bad. It's like both extremes can be terrible.
For sure. Absolutely. That's not even a question. I would say we see that in politics.
Right.
Both extremes
anything in the world
terrible.
It's yin and yang, right? It's like anything.
Right. But the common sense should prevail, right? Like, what does your dog want to do? How are you fulfilling your dog? And how are you just utilizing whatever tool you want to use to help that dog understand? And you could use whatever tool you want and for your dog to understand, and don't shame other people for how they do it. And don't call people abusers, which is a huge claim, for trying their best to communicate with their dog, especially if you have a small framed older lady that has a Rottweiler. And for her, she needs a prong collar. How can you shame those people? How can you not have a bit of empathy? And then on the same side, balance trainers don't shame positive only trainers who are just trying to like teach the dogs, but they don't have any judgment in the reverse. You had some questions for me.
I had some questions for you because we spoke a little bit about the name of the podcast. So obviously you must be into Stoicism or you wouldn't choose that name.
The way I think of Stoicism is ancient wisdom, time-tested wisdom that you could implement into your life. I think about it I try to think about things really simply because I have a small brain probably. So how can I bring guests onto this podcast that have distilled their knowledge, distilled their wisdom, put it through a filter, and then take that wisdom and decipher it to the masses to hopefully save them time and money?
Yeah. I bring this up because I really like Stoicism as well. Although I have a very casual understanding of it, I'm not going to pretend that I've read all of the ancient philosophers.
Sure.
Really, my understanding of Stoicism mostly comes through consuming a lot of Ryan Holiday's content. Like I'm a big Ryan Holiday fan. Even before Stoicism, I was a big Ryan Holiday fan before he was writing about Stoicism. I really liked his book Perennial Seller. That was I really enjoyed that book. His first book on media manipulation, his book Conspiracy, and then he started writing about Stoicism, and that kind of got me interested in that. I listened to his podcast quite frequently as well. So yeah, I've taken on board some concepts from Stoicism as well. And then when I saw that you'd used a name, I was like, oh, that's a cool name for a podcast.
Thank you.
And then being a podcast host, and just this is, you know, what any podcast host has to do. When you invited me on the podcast, I started doing some research about who you were, et cetera, et cetera. And then I stumble across, and this is such a great story. I don't know if you've told this on the podcast. I stumble across I go onto your personal profile, and I'm like, hey, this guy's followed by Gary Vee. That's so cool. Because I mean, again, I've read Gary's books. I consumed a lot of Gary Vee's content, and he's a big what's the word? He's like a bit of an icon for people that are doing stuff online. And I was like, how does Andrew know Gary Vee? Like, that's such a just so random, you know? And then I was doing a bit of research, and I found the story, but maybe it'll be better if you tell it.
I'm an immigrant from Ukraine. So is he. I grew up in a family business. So did he. In my 20s, I felt lost, as I think a lot of young men do. So I stumbled on his content. I was in Bali, came back from Bali. I said I wanted like a new change on my life, moved to New York, joined this basketball community 5 a.m. hoops. And one day he shows up. So we compete, get to know him. He shows up a few more times and like get to know each other. And I said, like, look, I mean, I've listened to you for the last five years, probably. You helped me a lot. I come from an immigrant family. Like, if you'd ever have the opportunity to meet with me, I'd love the opportunity to work for you. We have an interview with D-Rock in the car, going from like one meeting to another, his signature move. He took a chance on me. And he hired me to be, he asked me what I do. I do sales, was probably like my core skill in my 20s. Like I could pick up the phone and I didn't mind calling a few people. So he was launching a wine brand called Empathy Wines. And he took a chance on me. He gave me an opportunity to reach out to his community, sell wine, and create an experience for people. And I worked on Team Gary Vee for maybe about a year, selling wine. And then towards the end, his podcast producer like took on another job, and I started producing his podcast, which is just basically taking the audio, uploading it, you know, putting a description, putting timestamps, like basic stuff. But those two skills, one, taking a chance on me was super awesome. I mean, he's been great for me. And then two, even though it wasn't really my core competency, like I'm not great at it, I got a chance to learn the podcast, how to produce it, and actually how simple it was to produce it. And basically, I was there till December 2019. And if you remember, COVID hit in like March 2020. I started a podcast as a result of meeting Gary that was in the sports cards and collectible space, literally right as COVID started. So that experience led me to starting my own podcast, producing my podcast, reaching out to sponsors to get sponsors for the podcast. So really interesting way that things connect. And now, like, looking back, man, I mean, God, it was just God's work. Like, how does he show up at 5 a.m.? Why does he take a chance on me? I'm a nobody. The skill sets that I learned through being on Team Gary Vee, both like me working on them and just watching how the rest of the group operates, seeing what hard work looks like, seeing what Gary's kind of like pace looks like, what it takes to win at the highest level. So being in that ecosystem, man, it's not easy. There's a lot of things that looking back, I would probably do differently, but it's a blessing, man. It's a blessing. And the biggest blessing, back to like the Steve Jobs thing, is life hits you in the head with a brick. Man, I don't work in corporate. I've got a big personality. I talk a lot of shit. That's why I love you guys. So like, I never got along with like the corporate vibe, you know, like the polished vibe, but the skills I get to keep. So I was like, man, I'm going all in. I'm going all in on business, and I might win, I might lose. I'll probably have a bit of both, but I'm not looking back. And that was 30 years old. I'm so proud of that. You know, it was a final decision moment, because I dabbled with entrepreneurship. You know, I bought books off of my at school and sold them online, or I bought bike parts and I sold them online. Like I dabbled in entrepreneurship, but my identity was still half in, half out. You know what I mean? And then after that, I was like, man, I gotta go in business for myself. It's who I am. So,
what were the biggest lessons from that experience? What did you kind of really take away from that? I mean, I know it's hard to distill it into a little clip, but is there anything that really comes to mind?
well, for Gary specifically, he's equal parts smart and strategic as he is a big talker. Like if you look at his content, he's not just putting out random stuff. He's really thoughtful about how he puts things out. That's number one. Number two, the sheer amount of volume that it takes to negate luck. And at every state, like he's been doing this since he was 10, So what's that? 50, 60 now, like 40, 50 years. The sheer amount of volume it takes to negate luck is a big deal. And what I mean by that is every time that we think we've done it all, I don't have time. There's these micro moments, these 5, 7, 42, 13 minutes that you could actually do something that you've been putting off. And that might be just like, hey, today I had a great meeting with client XYZ. I just want to recap it for you guys on Instagram while it's top of mind, right? So we have these little micro moments in the day that we might just be like sitting and drinking coffee. And that 13 minutes turns into an hour and 14. And then at the end of the day, be like, I have no time, right? He squeezes all of those little moments into outputs. And then we wonder, like, how is he so successful? He makes the moment count, right? He makes each moment count. And the last thing is, and this, I will say, this I get, and this is why I love dogs. He's present, man. Presence is true presence, like being where you are, not letting your mind wander into the past and all of your mistakes, and not letting the mind wander into all of your anxiety and insecurities that are in the future. Just being in the present moment and attacking that present moment as much as you can. That's where I think, if you believe in God or whatever, that's where creation comes from, right? So like we see, he's such a good creator. Man, he's in that moment. So that thought, that intuition could hit him and he could share it with you guys or even share it with his employees, wherever it is. Whereas so much of our lives, man, we live in the past or the future and it eats away at us. It corrupts us. It creates, it stops progress. It creates doubt. It's a real killer. So those are probably the three big things.
Yeah, that's like really insightful for sure. Like, yeah, like, that takes a little time to think about, because that's that's really that's something to think about for sure.
I didn't leave you, I promise.
No, it's okay. I know. I get it.
Anything you want to push back on there? Anything you want to ask more about? I appreciate you asking me about Gary, because I'm a podcast host, so no one asks me about stuff.
Yeah.
So when you get a chance to like kind of go back and share your story, that's awesome. So I do appreciate that.
No, it's really good to hear. I guess it's challenging for most dog trainers because usually when you're starting out, you're kind of a solo person. A lot of that kind of video editing and stuff like that is tricky sometimes. I think a lot of dog trainers that are listening to this might think, I just don't have the time. But it's what you said, finding the moments in between. I wonder. I feel like Gary's spoken about this a little bit, and I know I've met some people that are very good at business, and it's interesting. The people they hire are not maybe the people that a lot of people would hire, in the sense that, like, a lot of dog trainers, their first instinct would be to hire another dog trainer. And actually, it seems like people like Gary, maybe his first instinct would be, maybe I'm guessing, to hire like someone to help create a lot of content, or like So sometimes it's better to hire in the areas where you're not able to fill that void as much.
He has 30 people working on his team. I have another one for you. And this one is a little insecurity, but like, man, don't live in cynicism, right? Like, So obviously I could look back and be like, why was I not like accepted into the team like some of those other guys? You know, why was I not I was in his ecosystem, but not like them or not like them, right? And you know how these thoughts, like I think of the mind as like seeds and weeds. Those thoughts, those weeds start planting and then they sprout and they might come out like, oh, you were a little brash there, Andrew. You were kind of rude to that person, right? And you're like, why was I rude to that person? The person's never done anything. It's because of those weeds that we plant in cynicism, you know? And man, I've gotten so much better at being aware because I was like, man, I would love to be in his inner team. You know, if I was in his inner team, I'd be making more, or I'd get a privilege to meet all of the cool guests that come through. And look, he pulled that guy into his podcast with that amazing athlete, but I didn't get to go in, right? And you see how that could, and we do that all the time. We do it unconsciously. It's like, oh, that guy's content. Oh, he had him on his podcast. Why would that guy go on a podcast with him? Like he should, you know what I mean?
Right.
That stuff, that is counterproductive energy. That's low frequency energy. And there's this graphic. It's called power versus force, right? And it's just like the frequencies which we vibrate in. I'll pull it up here. And you want to vibrate at a higher frequency because higher frequencies are what attract everything that you want. So the lowest frequency is shame. And then it goes shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, pride. Low frequencies, not attracting it. In fact, they're repelling energies. But then you go neutrality, willingness, acceptance, reason, love, joy, peace, and enlightenment. And I think if you can figure out ways to live in love, joy, peace, and enlightenment, you're going to attract the things you want out of your life, right? Because we hear life is abundant, right? World is abundant. Nick being on Amazon doesn't mean I can't be on Netflix, right? Nick having an awesome school community doesn't mean that I can't have an awesome school community. But we think that way, right? We think out of that place and it stifles us. Like when I first saw Nick's school community, I was like, I wanted to have a school community. Man, there's already one out there. I'm not going to do it. But that's low vibration. You're not going to attract what you want out of life. Versus if you're just like, what is my message to the world? How do I love my clients, love my audience, and try to provide a best service I can from my heart? You're going to show up as a creative person, not as a resentful person. And for a long time, I lived in resentment, cynicism. And I was like, man, why do I do the actions that I think should get me where I want to go, but I'm still repelling everything that I want? And I'm not saying here, I'm attracting it all now, but I see it's that I'm not living with the right energy.
Yeah, I think that's really good that you recognize that. That's such a personal growth thing, you know? And I see that a lot as well in the dog world, especially, people oftentimes they're envious and they're trying to find ways to degrade someone's achievements. And really what I think is a much better way of operating is like when you see someone doing something cool, try to figure out what they're doing, and try to be able to do that yourself. School is super collaborative. So it's not, it's not really competitive in the same way that some other things are. In fact, they really incentivize collaboration. They have a really good affiliate program. So let's say that you created a community about who knows what, separation anxiety or something. You can set up an affiliate program and we can I can send people to you and like everyone is like benefiting from that. But even aside from that, it's like the more people go on to school, the more people, when you're on school, you don't just join one community, so if I'm bringing people to school, you're bringing people to school, that kind of benefits both of us. So it's not really like that at all.
Yeah. And I mean, you see it in dog training, like I learned from trainer A, so I can't learn from trainer B, C, D, E, F. And I in that sense, I never understood that mindset because I think you could take valuable lessons from all of these trainers, but even the bigger lesson is that there's neuroplasticity in your brain and that you're always learning. That's actually the big lesson, that you're always in a mindset of learning and adding skills. And then that energy, you get to vibrate that to your clients, right? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't actually matter who you learn from. It matters how your clients feel about how interacting with you and your training program is. Because if they love the experience, they're going to tell everybody in the community. Right? Yeah. Like if we're talking about peak, like the best experience you've ever had, And you go home and you tell everybody, like, that restaurant, I spent less than I thought I would. The experience was insane. We walked in like we were welcome, like we were kings. You tell all your friends, right? So how do I create that same experience for my clients? And I think that is a much better place to play from. And then you put your head on the pillow at the end of the day and you're like, man, I got a clear conscience.
Right. Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking as you're talking about stuff, like some of my experiences with other trainers, like um I've spoken to Michael Ellis and Ivan, who are both, like, I think a lot of people's idols in the balance training world, especially. And it's like both of them, and this is so contrary to what I was saying in the beginning, and I don't think you can count on this. So Michael Ellis says this thing is like, he talks about like, he didn't really, doesn't go crazy into marketing and business. I think he kind of has a more of a belief of like, if you get really good, people will come. And I think Ivan is actually kind of similar to that. But that's been really counter to my own experiences, in the sense that, I mean, I think I would be broke for a hell of a long time if I did. You know what I mean? Like, and I mean, I'm obviously not anywhere near as good of a trainer as them, but I think it's like really important to learn the business side of things as well. But for some people, there's a level of being exceptional where sometimes you can kind of make up for your for not being so tuned into the business stuff. Having said that, I mean, Ivan's marketing game is actually really like
Right.
on point now. But it's just kind of
Michael Ellis
interesting.
has a whole online virtual program.
He does now, yeah.
So it's super important to watch what people do, not what people say. And then the second thing is like, learn sometimes from someone 1 or 2 steps ahead of you, not 44 steps ahead of you. Because sure, Ivan, Ivan could say, I don't care about marketing, but you're the best. You've won like 7 world championships, right. So they market you for you. And you have a whole army of dog trainers that spread the good word, right? So like, he's too far away from Joe or Patty, who started a year ago.
I think you just nailed it, actually. I think that's what I was trying to figure out in my own head, and you just nailed it. Like, watch what people do, I think that's really switched on. Yeah. How did you transition from business to dog training? Because that's quite an interesting leap.
With the sports card podcast, it was a talk show. It was banter driven. One guy from New York and me. And we did 1,000 episodes. We did 3.5 years. We didn't take a day off. And I was just like, if you know anything about sports cards and collectibles, it's a crabs in a bucket space. Everyone's trying to pull everyone down.
Right.
Because there's only a certain amount of cards. Everyone's going after those collectibles. So if you get it, I can't. So it's not an abundance mindset, back to what I said. And I was just like feeling that. I was like, man, I don't know if I see my future here. I like podcasting. I don't like the vibe. I would like it to be a hobby, which is actually called a hobby. It's not fulfilling. So I was like, man, I've wanted a dog forever. I finally have my own place. I'm getting a dog. I got a dog named Lucky. She's somewhere up here. And it changed my life. So then we started doing the runs in nature. The first thing I taught her was how to be off leash. And I lived in an apartment complex, and like neighbors just started asking, can you like take my dog out? And I was like, sure. And they're like, I'll pay you $50. I was like, are you really? For like to go for a run? I'm going to go for a run anyway today, but I guess I'll go. So I had my Lucky. Then one of my neighbors abandoned this crackhead. He was a menace, bite history, very defiant. And we just started running. So the pack went from 1 to 2 to 3. One of my girl neighbors, she had 2 Australian Shepherds. We would hang out with her a lot. The pack just grew. And the pack grew from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. And then instead of starting a training business, I was like, what do people in Miami need? They have a lot of doodles. I'm going to buy a mobile grooming van. So I did grooming for about like a year. And that was more like running the business because I had to have a groomer. But what I would do is I ended up getting a lot of aggressive dogs who didn't like grooming. And I would run them before as like a complimentary included in your grooming package. We're going to exercise and groom your dog. So your dog's going to be tired and clean when they come home, included in your price. It's a premium price though. And then I was like, I learned about negative reinforcement. What I mean is, like, if a dog's trying to like snap at you while you're like shaving its back legs, for example, I don't need to punish that dog. I need to teach that dog a better way to cope with stress. And I would just use a slip lead. So my groomer is grooming. I would say, and kind of give it a few leash pops. And now all of a sudden, dogs that would have to be muzzled or trazodoned and other groomers were coming to me. And then I was like, cool, I got something here. And I need to take a step back before taking a step forward. So I sold the grooming van, sold the book of business, bought this house, and then turned it into like a dog school, which is drop your dog off in the morning, pick them up in the evening. I'm going to teach them how to be off leash reliably. I'll proof it with an e-collar if you want. I'll teach it the concept of chilling out in the house in a crate on a place bed or whatever. We'll socialize with my pack of dogs. So if your dog's a little bit erratic, it's going to be surrounded by really calm, balanced dogs. You'll get those three things. And then if you need individual help, I could do that.
You know, you reminded me of something I learned as I was kind of getting out of my like tribalistic mindset. I was, when I was in the positive training world, one of the ways we would get dogs over bad experiences is all counter conditioning and positive training. And obviously that can work really well for dogs, but there's another approach which can be really helpful in some instances that I was never taught about. And I think that Jay Jack, actually, who I know you've interviewed previously, it kind of like reminds me of some of his stuff. And I learned it from a dog trainer called Finn McCabe, who is in the GRC world here in the southwest of England. He's, GRC Dog Sports, which is what Jay Jack came up with.
Super cool program.
And I remember I was watching him work with a dog that was worried about the slap mill. And, from my perspective of doing, all of my learning up to that point, we would do like counter conditioning. So maybe we would reward the dog near the slap mill, and then and it would be very gradual and over a long period of time. But I was just kind of watching Finn cook, and he was doing things in a very different way. And I used it the other day. I used it yesterday or the day before. I had a client whose dog hated going in the car. And there are two ways I can approach that. I can approach that in the way that, well, there's probably more than two ways, but there's two very common, or one my previous schooling would have said, do the positive training. Maybe you're shaping the dog for getting closer and you're rewarding them with food. But to be honest, my experience has said with that kind of car stuff, sometimes people can be doing that forever, and they just, and they're not really getting anywhere. So I used the strategy that Finn taught me, and I think is kind of in line with what Jay's doing. So we pick the dog up, we put the dog in the boot of the car, and all we're doing is blocking the dog from getting out. And the dog's like in the beginning fighting to get out, and then doesn't really take long. After 20 seconds, the dog is like clearly wants to get out, but is like just standing there like, please let me out, please let me out. And then after maybe 5 minutes of just having the dog in the car, I just was speaking to the dog. I was like, oh, good dog. Well done. Dog starts taking some food. Tail starts wagging. I said, good boy. Come on, then let's go. And I let the dog out of the car. Right. And I know if I do that, a handful of times, we'll get to the point where the dog is happy to go in the car, because I've kind of had them go through the process and start realizing that it's not a bad thing. And that took me so long to learn. Like, I feel like no one teaches that kind of stuff. And it reminds me of, like, for me, that's less, I guess it kind of is dog training, but it kind of reminds me of just like more like dogmanship, just kind of like working with dogs and just practical skills and stuff like that. And I saw Melanie Uda, who is another like really good person for explaining the science. She was talking about building resilience in young dogs through that kind of process, as being a really good way of building a dog's ability to cope with stress. And I was never taught that. It took me so long to learn that. And, I think that's a real shame that there's an absence of that kind of stuff out there, to be honest.
We've
There's a
been bringing
skill to that, right? And that's maybe where it's difficult, because there is a skill to that.
what
Like
is the skill?
the skill is knowing when it's going to work, knowing how to, knowing, you know, it's the practical. It's hard to like put into like tangibles, but like being able to read the dog, you know, when they're
Yeah.
actually their emotional state is
Dog
changing.
behavior for sure.
Yeah,
Reading the dog.
when their emotional state is changing from a negative one to a positive one, and also knowing when to push and when to give, I guess, right? And that's
Pressure
real.
encouragement. Pressure encouragement. Pressure
Right,
encouragement.
right.
Nick, you said no, but I'll give you I'll give you an example. Me, we've been bringing dogs to a nursing home for like the last 2 months. Like dogs we rehabilitated here, just like therapy dogs. We'll call them that. And then the local news station picked up the story. So now we have to speak on camera. What's going on inside of my body and my trainer's body? We're nervous, right?
Right.
What the F? Why does the body do that? It's a silly, silly thing for the body to do to trigger our nervous system for that.
Hmm.
I've spoken about dogs hundreds of times. I'm not going to have cake on my face, but the nervous system kicks you into fight or flight, right?
Mhm.
Now imagine if I would have bailed on that experience. Where's the result? Instead, and humans, we could do that on our own, but good parenting says, Andrew, you got to go do that. Because on the other side of that little tiny fear, it's not a realistic fear, but your body's nervous system is processing like it's a realistic fear. On the other side of that is growth. On the other side of speaking on stage is growth. Don't run from that. That is where your enlightenment comes from. And that's our job as dog owners, dog trainers, but really leaders, to say, buddy, your growth is on the other side of doing little small things that are challenging, and you don't get a treat for that. The treat is the reward, is the confidence that comes from it.
It almost, sometimes it can start to become neglectful when you deprive the dog of the opportunity to grow in that situation. You know, I saw another dog trainer just online. You know, she was talking about like, you know, I've had this dog for 2 years, and now, uh, you know, he got in the car for the first time, and you know, they were doing it in the way that I was saying. And I'm not saying that doesn't work for some dogs to do the positive, you know, stuff of rewarding. Obviously, it does work for some dogs, but if you've been doing that for a long period of time, at a certain point, you kind of have to go, like, maybe this isn't the best approach, you know, for you know, this, we need to go, there are times when you need to go faster, right? um and sometimes it's advantageous to take that approach as an opportunity to build resilience. Like if I had a young puppy, I would do the same thing. In fact, I do the same thing with young puppies with crate training. In the beginning, I do want them to want to go in there. I use food and I reward the dog and get them excited about going in there. But you're always going to have that occasion where the puppy's like, no, I don't want to go in there. I want to stay out and I want to run around and play. And so I do the same thing with the puppy. Then I'm sat by the gate, I'm holding the puppy, and I'm just not letting them make any other choice. And the moment they take the step into the crate, I'm like, good dog, well done, right? And that's a mild stressor, but there's a learning opportunity there, you know?
We see it with these like Malinois puppies. Like this TikTok video probably has like millions of views. Those Malinois puppies that like someone built like this like obstacle course where they have to like run through like Miller Lite cans and like the pool of like different sounds and textures. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Why is that done?
Why is it done?
Well, it's done to acclimate them to, and Malinois, because they have so much drive, they could go through it right away, right?
Right.
They don't even care. But you get a doodle that like gets neutered at 3 months old. That's like 14 pounds, a mini micro doodle, right? Super popular here. That like they take him to puppy school, then they take him to positive only, and then this dog is 8-9 months old, and then the owners come to me and say, my dog doesn't like to go on grass. Well, it's been catered to its whole life, so it's not that it's scared of the grass; it's scared of anything unknown, right? And you never hold that dog to a standard of just overcoming little bits of fear. And then they're like, my dog's reactive. Dude, your dog is crazy insecure towards the world. And then they're like, but at home, it's such a good dog. What home? It's its environment. It knows that environment, lives in that environment. But your dog is not just going to perpetually live at home. Your dog needs to interact with the world. And I don't know if we know this with kids. I don't have kids, so I don't do the metaphor of kids to dogs just because I don't have that experience. But like, I want a confident, resilient dog that isn't thrown off by the world. It's not rocket science to me. I just don't think that's a great place to live from.
I think, it's not where you start with these experiences, it's where you end in terms of, in the beginning when you're going through that process with the dog in the car, of course, they're stressed out, etc. But in the end, I want the dog to come away like, that wasn't that bad, actually. Right? Like, it's really important that we end when the dog is in a good emotional state. I kind of accidentally got into one of these situations once with one of my young dogs. I think he rolled in poo. And he was really young, and I bathed him for the first time, and he just totally freaked out. Like I wasn't anticipating so much of like a fight about it. But once that process had begun, if I will let him just go at that point, then he's going to fight more every single time, because I've started to teach him that the way to get out of this experience is just to fight, right?
Or if you would have given him treats, you would have said, "Hey, anytime you freak out and your nervous system is going berserk, let me bribe you into doing a basic thing like a bath."
Right. And usually when you're starting, usually when the dog's freaking out like that, they won't even take food anyway. So if you're relying just on food, you're going to be in a tricky situation. So I want the dog to come to a place where they're calmer and then once they're kind of a little bit happier about the situation, then I'm going to give them the relief of it ending. And hopefully they come away from that experience like, that wasn't actually that bad. Same thing with like nail trimming and stuff like that. There's, all of these kind of husbandry stuff. Like there is something that has to be gone through there.
It's called husbandry?
Yeah, you don't use that word?
Like your husband? No, not in the States, but I like it. Nick, any final, I keep these 60, 90 minutes. By the way, if Ivan listens to these, tremendous respect for Ivan for doing 4-hour podcasts. I don't understand how he's able to do that while drinking also. Any final words before I let you go?
I don't think so. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on. I guess as my one plug, I would say, if you enjoy this podcast, I'm sure you'll enjoy my podcast. It's Dog Talk with Nick Benja. Similar format, which is why I love these kind of interview podcasts, especially when you have someone that asks good questions. And I think you're obviously, very talented at that, which is great. So yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Who's one guest you want to have on that you haven't?
Man, this is tricky because I've had on almost all my favorite people. Really, I've had on some really, really good people. I mean, one thing I would say to you, I don't know, we've not spoken about this, but don't be afraid to reach out, because all people can say is no, right? In the beginning, I felt like I needed to almost earn I felt like I wasn't ready to approach people with really big names, but at a certain point, I just started going for it, and I think people are more than happy to do that. Oh man, I would struggle with that question. I'm not sure.
Any advice to younger trainers starting out 1, 2, 3 years in the game?
You don't put yourself in a box. Don't even label yourself as balanced or positive. Go learn from everyone. Prioritize people where you can see results, like visible results, because a lot of people are very good at talking, and if you just listen to them talk, you will be convinced. And it's great to listen to all different kinds of people, but I want to see that they've got skin in the game. I want to see that, I want to see some kind of proof that they can get results, because you can waste a lot of time, and I certainly have, listening to the wrong people, because they are really good at talking, but you just never see a video of them training a dog, or you never see a before and after, or any kind of evidence of efficacy. And sometimes that will lead to a rude awakening where you kind of get your bubble burst. Like I've had people where I've listened to them for a long time, and then I finally see a video of them training a dog, and I'm like, oh man,
What is that called cognitive dissonance? Where like your mind's just like, oh, I can't believe I listened to that person.
Yeah, so you have to be a bit careful.
Yeah, I would say realize that a lot of confidence comes from evidence. So like listening to people that are close, like I do also love Alex Hermosi's message, both from like a mindset and a very practical side. So like I'm someone that really struggled with confidence, and just remember that like if you are too, both from your business and from your training, if you have evidence and you kind of consciously marinate and remind yourself that you have the evidence, you don't lie to yourself, you I believe that your confidence could grow like kind of like a stepping stool. And don't worry about the confidence of things, worry about getting really awesome evidence, and the confidence will be a byproduct.
My friend Alex says we did a whole podcast on residential training, board and trains, and he said that was one of the biggest growth things for him because he was forced to realize what works and what doesn't. And some of the things that you think work, actually, when you have to train the dog, you start realizing, oh, this isn't like this isn't as effective as I thought it was. And vice versa, other things can be more effective. And I haven't had that experience. I'm actually just about to start doing some board and trains and some residentials, but I primarily for a long time was doing classes and one-to-ones. But I can see the benefit there of if you're actually if you're in charge of training the dog, even if you're doing the rescues and the fosters and stuff like that, you're gonna get good quick. I really believe that you're gonna be forced to have a real time evidence of what is working and what isn't working.
You're the man, Nick. Thank you guys for tuning in.